Finally, I'm home, thought Evelyn as she stepped out of the airport building. So much has changed in the 7 years she had been away. As she looked around, she saw a man approaching her. Hello, Evelyn Peterson. Sorry for the delay. There was an accident on the road. I'm William, Mr. Anderson's driver. He couldn't come himself. There's an urgent surgery. You understand, right? Hello, William. Of course, I understand. Both him and you. And please, just call me Evelyn. She smiled. William took her suitcase, and they headed to the car. They drove leisurely. Evelyn looked at the streets around her, recognizing some things and finding others entirely new. As they left the bustling city, she immersed herself in memories. William, can you stop here by the spring? She said, pointing. William stopped the car, and Evelyn got out. She waited until the people finished filling their water containers, then approached the spring and scooped some water with her hands. So delicious. There's no water like this anywhere else, she said, not noticing the stares around her. It was quite a sight. A girl stepping out of a fancy car, dressed in expensive clothes, drinking water from a spring and praising it. People didn't know that there wasn't always expensive clothes and cars in her life. Her father started as a simple surgeon in a small-town hospital. Her mother worked as an accountant. Then, her father saved the life of some official's son, and everything changed for their family. Her father got a job in a private clinic and started climbing the career ladder, working hard for it. Evelyn remembered barely seeing him at home, and her mother often came home late from work too. A neighbor, an elderly lady, often looked after her. On weekends, they would go to this very spring for water. After drinking and filling a bottle with spring water, they continued their journey. Evelyn thought of their neighbor. When her parents could afford to buy a house, they took the elderly lady with them. Mrs. Wilson lived with them for another 10 years, but she passed away just before seeing their success. Now her father had his own clinic, and they lived in a different house. Evelyn had studied abroad and worked there for 2 years. Initially, she tried to come home once a year, but the last 7 years, it just hadn't worked out. Her parents visited her a couple of times instead. During their last visit, her father told her how tired he was and that he wanted to hand over the family business to her. Evelyn herself was already longing to come back home. The gates opened and they drove into the yard. Her mother was already waiting there. After hugs, they went inside. While Evelyn took a shower and unpacked, her father came home. Dad, let's skip the formal dinner, okay? Evelyn, I remember you asked for a family dinner. It'll be just us and William with his wife. We'll grill some meat and have a quiet evening. William and his wife? Yes, honey. They've become like family over the past 2 years. We never told you, but William saved your mother. She was hit by a car and the driver fled. William took her to the hospital and paid for her room with his last money because she had no documents on her. Later, she told him who she was. A wonderful doctor operated on her. He works at my clinic now. What a story, Evelyn laughed. Yeah, things like that happen here. We also wanted to invite Andrew, but you asked not to meet the clinic staff yet. The evening passed in a warm, relaxed atmosphere. Evelyn's mother, Hope, reminisced about her childhood pranks. We thought she'd become a veterinarian, bringing home all sorts of animals to treat. Some we kept. I was like that too, said William's wife, Olivia, but I never got to finish my studies. She added sadly and changed the topic. Evelyn quickly found common ground with Olivia, and they arranged to meet in town the next evening. The next morning, Evelyn went to her father's office. He didn't have to work today, but he was sorting through some papers. Dad, may I come in? Of course, Evelyn. Come on in. I was just waiting for you. Evelyn sat down on the couch, looking around the office. There were more certificates and letters of appreciation on the walls. She was proud of her father. If it weren't for that one case, they wouldn't have the clinic. But he earned everything with his hard work, saving lives and achieving success on his own. Evelyn, how much time do you need to rest? I want you to start getting involved in the clinic's affairs soon, and in a year or two, fully take over for me. It's getting hard for me to operate and handle all this paperwork. Your mother and I need a break. Dad, don't rush. I have a favor to ask first. She smiled mysteriously. I want to get to know the staff and the environment without a formal introduction, not in a conference room with, here's my daughter, she'll be taking over soon. Her father laughed. And how do you want me to introduce you? Don't. I don't understand. Dad, if you introduce me as your daughter right away, I won't get to see the true faces of the staff. And what do you suggest? Give me a job, not as a doctor, though. A nurse? Dad, maybe, but I'd prefer to start as an orderly. Her father's eyebrows shot up. You studied and worked abroad as a doctor, and now you want to work as an orderly in your father's clinic? It's just for a short time. No one pays attention to orderlies. They talk freely around them. Evelyn made a face that always made her father agree to everything, much like the adorable pleading face of Puss in Boots from Shrek. Okay, how do you envision this? Evelyn shared her plan. First, she familiarized herself with the staff files to know who was responsible for what. That evening, she went to meet Olivia. Olivia, I need your help choosing clothes. Evelyn? You need my help? You dress better than I ever could. I'm afraid to even step foot in the stores you shop at, Olivia laughed. Evelyn had to explain everything to Olivia, who laughed a lot. They swapped Evelyn's clothes for Olivia's. Sorry, but you can't go to those stores looking like this. Don't scare people. They might think you're from the ministry. The two women had a great time, and Evelyn's wardrobe grew. She even found some of the clothes were well made, though she wished for better fabric. The next day, William took Peter to the clinic, and Evelyn got out of the car as soon as they reached the nearest bus stop. I'll take the bus. This is not up for discussion, she said firmly. In the HR department, she was barely noticed. They glanced at her documents, not paying attention to the slight differences between her and Olivia. They gave her a trial period, saying that official hiring would follow if she lasted. Orderlies rarely did, and the paperwork was a hassle. This detail worked in Evelyn's favor. A nurse gave her a disdainful look and directed her to another for her uniform. Kate, show the newbie around. I've got a lot to do. Kate was quiet and reserved. She calmly gave Evelyn her uniform and showed her around the clinic, explaining where everything was. Olivia, Kate addressed Evelyn, we're short-staffed. We help as much as we can, but you'll have a lot of work. Evelyn almost missed this due to the name, but quickly recovered. It's okay, Kate. I'll manage. I may look fragile, but I'm tougher than I seem. Kate told her who could help and who to avoid. She pointed out a man walking importantly. That's Mr. Smith. He's aiming for the deputy position. They say the director's daughter will soon take over, and Mr. Smith is currying favor with the management. The current deputy is retiring soon, along with the director. And Vera, the one who sent you to me, already claims she'll be head nurse when the management changes. That position is currently open. See that doctor with the patient? That's Dr. Martin. A wonderful doctor and a great person. He treats all patients equally, whether they pay or not. We have 3 free rooms here. Mr. Smith hates Dr. Martin for his kindness. If he had his way, he'd close the free rooms. Dr. Martin is unmarried, but has a little daughter. No one knows the details because he's very private, but polite with everyone. This way, Evelyn gradually learned more about the staff. While working, she observed how they treated patients. Some loved their job, others seemed unsure why they were there. After a week, she was assigned a night shift with Dr. Martin and Kate. The night shift initially scared her, but knowing who she was working with, Evelyn felt reassured. There were, of course, other doctors and nurses, but she liked them too. They worked diligently without engaging in office politics. Around 1 a.m., there was noise from the emergency room. Evelyn rushed out to see a man on a stretcher, covered in blood. He won't make it to another hospital. Multiple stab wounds. No documents, said the paramedic. Everyone sprang into action. Dr. Martin headed to the operating room with Kate following. Evelyn stayed to clean up. She overheard the nurses talking. Dr. Martin will be in trouble tomorrow. There's no free room. A businessman is scheduled for a routine checkup in the only available room. If Mr. Smith finds out, he'll fire Dr. Martin for sure. And maybe us too. But the man is critically injured. He wouldn't survive a transfer, another nurse argued. That's why Dr. Martin is a great doctor and a good man. Evelyn cleaned and waited for the surgery to end. The patient was taken to the vacant room. The next day, Mr. Smith appeared and made a scene. Dr. Martin, what's this mess? Why is there a bloodied patient in the room reserved for the businessman? Who authorized this? Smith shouted. Evelyn kept her head down, cleaning up as much as she could. It was my decision, Mr. Smith. The man would have died on the way to another hospital. Dr. Martin replied calmly. Who gave you the authority to admit some homeless man to a private ward? Mr. Smith roared throughout the clinic. He was brought in with stab wounds. He wouldn't have made it to another hospital. This is a human life. How can you not understand? Dr. Martin responded calmly. I understand about life, but do you know what keeps this clinic running? Are you going to pay your salary with understanding? Mr. Smith retorted. I will explain to the patient, and I think he will agree to postpone his hospitalization for a few days. Dr. Martin suggested. You won't get within a meter of him. Explain, will you? You're fired. Get out. And as for you, he said, turning to the nurses, we'll talk later. Why didn't you report the emergency? You can forget about your bonuses. Mr. Smith stormed off to his office. When the private patient entered the clinic, Vera quickly approached him. Mr. Johnson, I'm terribly sorry, but we can't admit you right now. Please wait for half an hour in our cafe, and we'll have a room ready for you. Evelyn couldn't hold back. Vera, how can you free up a room? There's a man recovering from surgery in there. He can't be moved. Is that even a person? If he doesn't survive, who's going to cry over him? I don't understand. The businessman interrupted. Miss, can you explain? He asked Evelyn. Evelyn explained everything as it was. The businessman glared at Vera. Do you think that just because I'm wealthy, I have no conscience? You know my appointment is routine and can be postponed, and you intended to act this way? How do they keep employees like you here? He spat angrily and walked out. You're fired, Vera hissed. Evelyn just smiled and silently walked out. She was glad she had stayed a little longer after her shift and witnessed it all. The next morning, Andrew was woken by a persistent doorbell. Dad, open the door, said little Annie, yawning, as he had decided not to take her to kindergarten today. At the door stood Mr. Peterson's driver. I'm here for you. The boss is calling. But I've been fired, Andrew replied. The boss said to bring you. I don't know anything else. Andrew had to take little Annie with him and go. He was very surprised when he saw the new orderly Evelyn in the car. Were you called too? He asked. Yes, and I was also fired. And what's this little princess's name? I'm Annie. They continued their ride, talking about unrelated topics. Annie herself explained that her mother had left them because her father didn't buy her diamonds. She had overheard this when her mother was leaving. Andrew tried to stop his daughter from talking, but he couldn't. Yes, my wife was unhappy with my salary and found a better option. When I got a job with Mr. Peterson, she wanted to come back. But traitors are not needed by my daughter and me. When Evelyn and Andrew entered the clinic, silence fell around them. Only Mr. Smith exclaimed, What are you doing here? You're fired. I asked them to come, said Mr. Peterson calmly. Now, please come to the conference room. Kate, can you take care of things here for a bit? Kate nodded. She was glad to see Evelyn and Andrew. I have gathered you all here to introduce my daughter, Evelyn, he said, pointing to the orderly. Everyone stood with their mouths open as she walked over to her father. Yes, you know me as Evelyn. During my time here, I have come to know you all. There will be personnel changes, but if you have done your job well, you have nothing to worry about. But as for you, Mr. Smith and Vera, you should start thinking about where to find a new job. You are already expected in the HR department, Evelyn said, smiling. She couldn't hold back. She wanted to tell them in private, but they deserved to hear it in front of everyone. Mr. Smith and Vera stormed out of the hall past Kate. Later, she was told what had happened. It took her a long time to get used to the idea that Evelyn was actually Mr. Peterson's daughter, and also to the fact that she was now the head nurse. Andrew was reinstated at work and promoted to deputy chief physician. Several years passed. Evelyn, are you coming to us with Mark today? Of course, Annie. How could I miss your daughter's birthday? And yes, I remember that I need to take a look at Rich. I'll bring my medical kit with me. Great, we'll be waiting. Evelyn had helped her friend Annie get back into her studies. Now she was a veterinary doctor, as she had always dreamed, and she worked at Evelyn's clinic. Although Evelyn herself didn't interfere, she was waiting for the right moment to gift the clinic to her friend. Today, at her daughter's birthday party, Kate and her husband would also come. Andrew left work early and was already preparing the barbecue in the yard. The only thing missing for complete harmony were their parents, but they were on vacation. Therefore, when Evelyn announced today that they were expecting a baby, her parents would also find out via video call. That's how the story ends, friends. Join the conversation below and express your thoughts on this novel. If you found it captivating, share the link with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new story that will make your heart race. Your support inspires us to create more tales. All the best to you. Take care and see you next time.